one more minute to trickle in. Okay, we're going to get started here. We're going to try to make this short and sweet, or at least sweet. But the purpose of today is trying to combine the Youth Choices Collaborative along with the school community partnerships. Trying to avoid duplication of services. Youth Choices always struggled of getting the school to our meetings, so we're crashing yours, but in the best interest of the child. Because ultimately it's how do we serve our youth, whether they're in school or out of school. So I don't know if we want to start off with perhaps some successes. Actually, you know, Michaela didn't want to do this. I think knowing who's at the table, and if we can just quickly state your name and your agency, and then we'll jump back to successes, challenges, and gaps. And we can start with Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Rodricks. I'm one of the senior care coordinators at the CSA program at Family Service.
So does anybody want to contribute some of the successes from the school community partnerships?
I'll start. We just finished an 8-week pilot program at the Doran and the Green School with 4th grade students on college and career awareness. What we did is we brought the students to the university at the beginning of the program, and we also brought them to the university on Monday, where they did a campus tour. We invited their parents. They did presentations, PowerPoints. They had poster boards, and it's basically trying to instill in them the importance of higher education. And so it was very successful. We had about 200 students, and it was a pilot program, and we're going to continue it next year.
Yesterday at Durfee, through the generosity of family planning, we had the yellow dress production come. All the sophomores were able to see a production about healthy relationships. It was very powerful. It was in 2 different sessions, and very grateful.
Anyone else?
We're currently doing through our teen pregnancy prevention program, it's a 3-part communications program at the Morton Junior High Middle School.
Okay, with these collaborations, it's more about providing wraparound services. It's not just falling upon any one agency or any one program to work with youth. And with that, I'll segue to Sarah, who's thrilled about talking about wraparound services.
And had no idea that I would be doing this. So, brief background on what we do. We're the community service agency out of Family Service. So there are actually 32 community service agencies in the state of Massachusetts. They're in locations wherever there are DCF offices, and we service the same catchment areas. So Fall River services Fall River, Somerset, Swansea, Westport, and East Freetown. We actually have the smallest catchment area of all the CSAs. So what we typically do is we work with kids with serious emotional issues, kids that are having issues at school, at home, and in the community, or some combination of those things. We go out, we meet with families, we do an initial assessment. Our assessment is really trying to get what the family's story is, so we get some information about what is going well for a family and what they're struggling with. And then we try to connect them to everyone in the community. We try to connect them to you folks. We try to connect them, whatever their needs are, we try to connect to some kind of opportunity that's in the community that's going to help meet that need. We try not to focus too much on services because frankly services come and go, providers come and go, they leave agencies, there's lots of turnover. So we try to find things that are a little bit more sustainable, activities in the community. CD Rec has been a huge thing for us. We try to connect kids to things that are going to form lasting, sustainable relationships. We work a lot in schools, trying to get other providers or other community partners to understand kind of where a kid or where a family is coming from in order to help kind of move that family forward. Does that make sense? I do better if people just ask questions about what wraparound is. I mean, that's kind of a brief overview, but it's going to look very different for every family. There are some families that we work with that you might just have a kiddo who's having some issues in school, kids transitioning to kindergarten, suddenly this kiddo who never had behavioral issues before is tantruming all over the place. They can't take his kid into the community. We do some work with the family to figure out what the real issue is and try to get some folks involved to help that. Sometimes it's the school, sometimes it's a therapist, sometimes it's a mentor, sometimes it's getting another relative to spend some extra time with this kid. And it's really about making sure that all those folks are at the table, talking about what the plan is for this child, and then following up to make sure that they're following through on what their task is. The nice part about wraparound is that there's one coordinator, so there's one kind of point person for all this stuff, and everyone else gets to do what they're really good at. So the therapist is able to actually sit and do real therapy with this kiddo instead of kind of focusing on all these case management kinds of things. The teacher is actually able to teach this child instead of, focusing on all the stuff that's going on at home. They're able to keep that information in the back of their mind, but at the same time be able to actually do what they've set out to do. It's a voluntary, thanks. It's a voluntary program, which is the other nice thing for families. So as long as they have Mass Health, there's 2 plans, and I won't get into that stuff, but as long as they have Mass Health, we're able to work with these kiddos. And again, we work with the entire family. So I think we all know that when you get a kiddo who's having some trouble, it's not just the kid that you're treating. For the most part, you're working with everybody in the family. It's parents, it's brothers and sisters, it's grandparents, and it's help meeting their needs at the same time. Once you kind of ameliorate some of those issues, a lot of times the kid does a lot better.
Thank you. Barbara, and I'll put you on the spot with one of your hats. Could you just touch base on, from the school's perspective, on positive youth development, wraparound services, and the buckets?
Okay. Wraparound zone. We focus on climate and culture within the schools. We focus on community connections, and we focus on identifying and addressing student needs. Those are the 3 buckets from Wraparound Zone. Through those buckets and through the work that we've done and the planning that we've done, we have a lot of support going into the schools. We have a lot of training for teachers on responsive classroom and guided discipline, for the climate and culture piece, for the identifying and addressing student needs. Lots of schools have been partnering with mental health services, with your services, to meet the individual needs of students. We're trying to make that more uniform, which I'll talk about in a minute. Under the Positive Youth Development bucket, we have lots of great things going on through our 21st Century program, through schools that are extended learning time schools, happening within the day, happening outside of the day. We are trying to do more with making sure that every child in our school system is connected in some way to an after-school program. And through the work that we've done this year, actually I've only worn this hat for half a year, but we've come to the conclusion that, number one, we need more data. We need more data on kids. We need to know how they feel, what they're thinking about their schools, the climate of their schools. We need to know if they're connected in some way to after-school activities. So our plan is, I know it's later in the what's happening for next year, but I'm just going to move forward. Our plan is to put better data systems in place to survey families, to find out what their needs are, because we need to engage our families and we need to build their capacity, and we don't know what their needs are or their wants are. So we need to survey them, and then we need to survey our kids. We need to, like I said, find out how they're feeling in school, if they're connected after school. We need to survey our staff and ask them some important questions about the climate and culture in their schools. So with this data, we have a plan to develop these, what we're calling advisory committees, and bringing in a lot of you into these committees, and looking at this data and not only looking for community trends, district-wide trends, but looking at what individual schools' needs might be and linking some of your services and supporting those partnerships for those schools, as well as providing district-wide programs that would meet the needs of trends of schools. So, we're going to have an advisory committee for parent engagement, and lots of your agencies that provide parent-type support services will be invited to join that committee. We're going to have a committee that addresses social emotional needs of students, another committee on health and nutrition that Marsha is helping to run with Karen Long. They've already started that committee work. We're going to have a positive youth development committee. So when we gather this information about what kids are doing outside of school time, we're going to ask you to help us support individual schools and maybe providing after-school programs, or just thinking, I grew up in the south end of the city, and I still realize that there's not a lot for kids after school at the south end of the city, not that I'm aware of. And that's why I need your expertise to tell me, if I'm a kid still living on Laurel Street in the south end of the city, where can I go after school? Because the Boys Club is too far away, the YMCA is too far away, and my school has nothing after school. So, those are the kinds of things we're going to be doing, and hoping that partners can help us to do next year through this data, this structure system that we have in place. I'm in the process of developing a website. I think many of you were at the last 21st Century meeting and may have heard this, but schools and teachers and principals have been asking me for tools. We have a lot of principals that are not from the city, so they're not familiar with the services or what's available in the city for their students once they've identified a need. And so they're asking me to create a tool. I'm creating a web page that will, number one, list all the services that we've identified in this city that they could link students and families or link their own school to. An MOU process. Some people don't know how to have a partnership, how to have that initial discussion with a provider. So the MOU is really pretty basic, but it really outlines, first of all, talk about student outcomes. What's the plan? Having this partnership, it's a wonderful thing, but what's the result? What's the student outcome going to be? And then what's your role? What's my role? So that it's clear and upfront. What do I need from you? What do you need from me? And an evaluation process at the end of the year. Let's talk about how the year went, those kinds of things. So those are the kinds of tools that schools need, staff, principals primarily need, to develop strong relationships, strong effective relationships, and there'll be lots of other information on the web page. Like I said, a database. I also want to list who's working with what school. Principals will say, I just found out that the Doran has this great partnership with this program. I would love to have that in my school. I have a need for that in my school, but I didn't know that. So I want that to be listed on the website also. So if I'm the principal of the Laterno school, I can look and see what's going on at the other schools and say, I would love to have that service. I'm going to contact Wendy to find out if I can have those parent cafes after school, or whatever it might be. So I'm hoping that it'll be informative. It'll have really good tools to support strong partnerships in the city. And I think that's, is that good,
Perfect.
Christian?
Thank you. And we're very fortunate to have the school resource officers. So I think a lot of people at the table don't really know your role, so opening up to one of the men or women in blue to describe their role.
Okay, since you're looking at me, Christian. All right, basically, as a school resource officer, I'm eventually going to refer to one of the officers that are actually in the schools, because they're dealing with the day-to-day task of being a school resource officer. And I was one several years ago, but things have changed, and they pretty much can provide you what's going on today. But I would like to say that as a school resource officer, you wear many hats. I mean, I can't begin. You're a mentor, you're a counselor, you're a law enforcement official, you're a surrogate parent. I mean, the tasks that we have are endless, and the agencies that we're hearing about here can be very helpful. As a matter of fact, I'd like to touch on something before I pass this on to someone else, is the agencies you're talking about wraparound. Because I have teachers come to me, and what happens is they have maybe 1 or 2 students in their class that are totally out of control. But they're not at the line of being criminal. So there's not much we can do, and I'm not sure exactly how effective the school discipline is being with this child. Would wraparound address something like that?
Absolutely, that's that second bucket, identifying and addressing students in need. And many of the schools have partnered with agencies like, I forgot your first name, I'm sorry.
Sarah.
And certain agencies specialize with certain age students. So like I said, we have wonderful partnerships in pockets, but we need a more district-wide approach to providing those wraparound services.
So if a teacher came to me, there would be no problem with me referring them to one of your agencies?
Right, I would hope that the teacher would, there's a lot of supports within the school. There are teams of teachers with, first it should start with the school adjustment counselors. Thank you for reminding me of that, Gretchen. But it should start there, and with the school adjustment counselor or guidance counselor support, they're the ones that can link either, well, first it would go through, we call them assistant teams, teacher assistant teams, but it would go through that process to see if we could support the child just with in-house services. But then if we identify that students really, or families even, many of the behaviors we see in the school day are related to a crisis that's going on in the home. If that type of service is needed, that's when we outreach to services, outside services like hers, where they're going to not only provide counseling or support for the child, but more importantly, they're going to provide services for the whole family. Gretchen, did you want to add to that?
No, I mean, the school adjustment counselors, we here at Durfee, Michaela and I mean, that's what we do all day, every day, is we are the link to the outside, so we are hooking them up with CSA every single day, so that's really, ask the teachers, because every school has a school adjustment counselor, and maybe they just don't know that that's who they're supposed, that the teachers don't know that's who they're supposed to.
Well, there's been certain cases where they have went to the adjustment counselor.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
the other
problem
thing
is
too that
persist-
I think is tough is that it's not always, the resources that they need, you don't get overnight all the time. There's a referral process, and it's not always, just because those services are in place, it's not a quick fix either. It's a long process, you're working on sometimes issues that have been going on for years that you're trying to get all the services in place for the students. So it doesn't, just because we make the referral doesn't mean that the child's fixed at that point. It takes a while, so sometimes.
But these programs are available K-12 or?
Absolutely.
If I can just add something
To that too, there are different levels of care and different services that are available, and some quicker than others. And, perhaps getting people like Child and Family and like Family Service and other agencies to come out and educate the adjustment counselors to what those services are.
Right, and we do that all the time. We have people in here all the time. I'll have to say, we're pretty quick at getting our students into services that we need, but sometimes there are waits, especially if a parent wants a certain area of the city that they want to go to, if they have a certain counselor that they're requesting. Sometimes we have, we have a couple of, insurances depending, so there's a lot of things that come into play when we're referring, but we always try and stay on top of things. All of our professional development days, the adjustment counselors here have outside, a lot of you guys have come in to talk to us, outside communities, just because even within the same agency, there's changes all the time. There's changes in personnel, there's changes in whatever services they're providing, depending on what the grant is, what grants they have at that time. So we really try and stay on top of that within the schools.
So the CSA holds on to a lot of that information because that's what we do all day, every day. That is our sole goal, is to connect kids and families to things in the community that are going to help meet their needs, whether that's something that's insurance-based or whether that's something they can just access. We actually have a 24-hour turnover, so once we get a call from a parent, a family, anybody that is trying to refer a kiddo, we call them within 24 hours and we set up an appointment. That appointment is within 3 days, or we offer them an appointment within 3 days. Sometimes families can't do that, and sometimes they're a little taken aback by how quickly we've responded, but we have to call within 24 hours and then offer that first appointment. That's not to say that the things that we'll put in place are going to happen overnight, because that stuff does wait. But for the you do have to wait for those things. That's the reality of it. But for the CSA, we come out very quickly, and there may be other things that we can tap into that, either up and coming things or things that just folks aren't aware that are out there, because there's a ton of services in this area. Florida is a hugely service-rich community. There's tons and tons of things. So no one person can manage all of that, but that's kind of what we set out to do.
In both instances, the first component would be the parents' willingness to participate. So,
Conversation to one of our middle school officers who do an incredible job out there with the middle schools, either Officer Buglio or Officer Amaral.
We are, first and foremost, we're police officers. We don't go into a school and try to arrest somebody. That's not what we're doing there. If it comes down to something happens, a criminal act, we have to arrest somebody, we do. But that's the bottom of the barrel. We don't want to do that. We're a liaison between the police department and school, like safety, lockdown. We implemented different lockdown plans in the past 2 years. We've been working with elementary, pre-K, K. We've actually gone to other businesses in the community as well to try and help them. We also do a teen academy which started 8 years ago, which is, excuse me, at the end of the year, we get kids from each of the middle schools, the high school, and come into the police department for a week, and we show them how to be police officers. We actually, this year, myself and Officer Fogarty did a little acting scene with them, and that was really fun. So we're somebody that the kids can look up to. Our job, like Sergeant Francis said, is wearing 10,000 hats. I've had young men in my office who broke up with their girlfriend, and they didn't know who else to talk to, so they came and talked to me.
And they tried to make her their girlfriend, so.
I said I was a little old for that. Childlike, but we also have something else that came into the police department working with the SROs. How long ago, Nina?
2009.
Well, that's 2009. A youth court with Nina brought youth court here, and I don't know. No. Youth court is incredible, and what it does is a kid who acts stupid, does something wrong, that could go criminal. Instead, you give them a chance, and we go through youth court, and Nina has a million different programs. There's always something. We can always help a kid out. We do youth court on Thursday nights at the station. We do a behavior modification camp on Saturdays. Every aspect, every way that we can try to help a child, a student, without going the route of criminal, we do. It's the bottom line. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to help the kids to grow, to be a part of the community. It's great when the SROs are at things that happen outside of, me myself, and I'm sure I can talk for the other SROs, if there's something going on in the community with kids, I can walk into a park and I think I can walk into right in the middle of a situation with kids who are going at each other. And if I've had them before, I can probably calm somebody down, only because we have worked with them through the years. And they look at us differently. They look at us as police officers, but we form a different type of relationship. So there's a lot more to do. We do a million different things, and every day we're coming up with something different to add. And I'm calling my sergeant every 5 minutes saying, hey, can we do this? We're actually doing something on Friday with Doran School. It's called, it's going to be Greet and Read, where police officers are going to be reading to elementary school. So that's something else we're trying to add to go. Unfortunately, although we would love to have police officers in all the schools, unfortunately at this point we can't, but we're trying to extend us to elementary as well. You know, everybody always says happy to see a firefighter, not happy to see a police officer at your door. We want to change that. We want to make sure everybody feels the same, and starting young is the way to go. So I can talk forever, but just want to
Thanks.
Officer Jackson?
It was the Durfee alternative. I have a little different situation than like Officer Julio does. Working in the middle schools, I work with all of our troubled teens. So I have a little more challenges than most. Like you were discussing about the SACs and all that, you know, I have a great crew over at RPS, Shelley Seabrook and Matt Silva. They help out a lot with getting all the services that our kids need, because our kids do need quite a bit of services. We try to do a lot of mentoring over at my school. I have a very good relationship with my element of kids, and like Officer William was saying, it's like your foster mom, because I have a lot of kids who come to me and talk to me about personal problems at home, and I try to help out and get them steered in the right direction for the services that we have available. It's going to be great to have that website to be able to go to see what else I can come up with, because Shelley and Matt are usually very time crunched due to the population that I have. But again, we do a lot of programs when it comes to after school. At one time we were running a program, Games Against Games, doing basketball at some schools. We have open gym nights with Officer Fogarty over here at Durfee.
do the video, kids.
Yes, the video programming's over at CUS. So, I mean, we're all trying to get our kids off the streets, because again, there is nothing for our kids to do in the afternoons, especially my high school kids. We have nothing available for them to do. And my population, I want to try to keep them away from hanging over on the corner of 5th and Morgan and get them involved in other things. So that's about the extent of what we do.
Well, what I'd like to see come from this meeting is maybe a possibility of a list of contact information, agencies, a person to refer to. So if we have something with a kid and, you know, we don't know what to do with them, and it's maybe not a criminal incident, but we want to get them some help, we could look at the list and say, okay, I got this agency, I got this contact person. So I know there's a sign-up sheet going around, but if there's something we could get copies of, you know, further down the road, so, you know, like a reference guide, I think that would be a big help.
Well, as Officer Flutie said, please ensure that you sign the sign-in sheet. So now we'll jump to any information sharing regarding any initiatives or events that are coming up. I know some people have some flyers to pass out, so we will stop right there.
Good morning, my name is Brenda Barbaras. I'm sorry to be doing introductions previously before I came in. Sorry. I'm from BMC Health Net Plan. We're a Medicaid managed care organization that manages Medicaid patients through the state. Feel free to see me. I can give you my business card, and that's my spiel. I'll pass these around, and again, if you can help me with that, I'd appreciate it.
Any other events or info sharing?
We, as part of a very small portion of our program is the hearing nights, and as part of the hearing nights.
Do you have a flyer?
I do, actually, not with me, but I do. I give you my business card.
Okay, that'd be great.
There are about 35 different people tabling on safe and peaceful initiatives, bouncy houses, free food, face painting, music, 12 to 3. Kick off to a safe summer, 22nd of June.
I'd like to just talk a little bit about the school-based program that we have at Child and Family, hearing that the school resource officers are not always aware of what services are out there. We have clinicians that are in almost all of the Fall River schools right now, and we're hoping to be in every school. Your school adjustment counselors are very aware of us. They're making referrals to us, but we usually have a clinician or two clinicians who are assigned to a school and are seeing. We're not available on the crisis basis, so when there's a moment right there, it has to be an active client, but they're working with us in making those referrals, so that way they're getting school-based services, but then they can also access the outpatient services at the office, including psychiatry as well.
Through who? I'm sorry.
Child and Family Services.
I'd just like to talk a little bit about our summer reading program we're putting together. It's still in the development stage. Hopefully it'll be ready to go by the end of the last day of school. But of course, as any other summer reading program, children will have mandatory reads at each grade level, K to 12, with activities that they need to do over the summer. But we've also added a twist where we initially called it a book scavenger hunt, but really I don't think it falls under all the criteria of a scavenger hunt. But what we're asking about 10 to 12 partners to do, one is the police station, the fire station, the Children's Museum, and there's several more on that list. We're asking them to kind of hold a stash of books for kids from K to 8, and asking that if a child comes in with his book log to visit, that someone will sign off the book log saying that they visited and give the child a book that's there. So really it's a way of children to collect like up to a dozen free books by visiting various places throughout the city. And hopefully if people have time, like I spoke to one of the firemen, if they have time at the sites that we're putting the books, they'll get a little tour of the fire station or the Marine Museum. We're asking them to be one of the sites. And so we're hoping that kids have a reason to visit these wonderful sites in our cities, and that people will partner with us to sign off on their book log and hand out their books and show them a little bit of these wonderful places that we have. So that's part of the new summer reading program that we're going to be launching soon.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
The libraries have free pass lists for a lot of the places that you're mentioning too, so if a family has a library card, they can check out a pass.
That's great to know, because I'll put that in the information to go there first, because of course the library will be one of the spots. But to go there first and see if they can get the free passes to any of the other sites, that's a great idea.
Aubrey, you know, yeah.
Well, with that, we'll segue to Michaela.
I'll just touch real briefly, the Fall Over Youth Violence Prevention Initiative, there is a more detailed presentation tonight at the Boys and Girls Club at 6:30. But basically, it's a way to kind of collaborate a lot of these different initiatives, and really, we're all part of the violence prevention effort at this table because we're trying to engage kids in healthier, safer activities. But it's a way to kind of, the website's getting launched tonight, but unofficially it is available at fruyouthviolenceprevention.org. And what it has is it has a running blog of the different activities going on that are related to violence prevention in our community. It touches on all the different grants we receive as a city and what they're doing. It shows different ways to get involved. If you're a school, if you're a parent, if you're the media, there's different ways that show to get involved in the movement. And a big piece of this initiative will be that we're working toward building a steering committee that's with a focus on a new youth violence prevention master plan for the city. If anyone is interested in being part of that steering committee, let us know, let Christian or myself know. But we have kind of frameworked a little bit out what we want, but that'll master plan will really focus on what we do have. How to make things sustainable, because we're working with a lot of grants and those are wonderful, but how do we keep this sustainable? Grants we know don't last forever, or they dry up a little bit, and so yeah, it'll be and where the gaps are in our services. So it'll be a great way to analyze that. So anyone interested in that, please let me know.
Any questions on the Youth Violence Prevention Initiative? We'll move on to moving forward into next year. Looking to get some feedback on what people feel about this combined meeting. Is it worthwhile? Because we want to make these meetings productive and ultimately looking to accomplish something. Like with all the grants that we work on, what outcomes are we achieving? So we'll open it up on how people feel about this meeting. And do we meet quarterly? Do we continue? Or do we just say, it's nice meeting you? So looking for some feedback, and I apologize, I'm going to run to the phone tower. And people are speechless.
I'll start. I appreciate these meetings because I like to, for instance, what I just did just now about throwing out the summer reading program and all the good feedback that I got back from that. And I appreciate all the expertise sitting in this room right now, and so I hope that these meetings continue, and whether they're monthly or quarterly, every other month, I don't know, but I just appreciate the fact that everybody's in this room and able to bounce things off of one another and share with one another, and that's how I feel.
And this is also an opportunity to identify some of the gaps. Who's missing at this table? What sort of programs are we lacking? This is more for the school folks and the SROs. What would you like to see in the schools or after schools as the service providers are here at the table? No gaps? We've got a perfect city?
You're awesome. I mean, does anyone else have any other thoughts? Do we keep these two groups kind of combined and join forces? I feel like there in the past was a real wall between this community component and the schools, and now we've kind of broken it down, and I feel like it's very beneficial for all of us to be around the table because we're all doing the same stuff.
It's been my first time here attending this meeting, and I think it's been very helpful.
The first combined meeting, again, the same thing.
I do think we should probably extend an invitation to have representation from an elementary school and middle school too, though.
They did, every single school adjustment counselor does get invitations.
Oh, okay. Maybe they can't all get out probably.
No, yeah, it's super challenging, but yeah, they do all get it, but depending on what's going on. I guess at this point, usually at this point, people know people they want to connect with. We just kind of leave it open for networking. We have this area for a while, so if anyone wants to connect with one another, I will be in touch, or Christian via email, to look at moving forward in the fall and kind of relaunching this. and looking at where we need to go. And if anyone has any ideas moving forward at where this all needs to go, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know.